Shalom, shalom, people. This be our brother, man. Zakum, Razam, Banya, Shirala. How y'all doing today, man? Let's start. Let's take this little lesson to y'all, man. Actually, this lesson, it stems from a question I asked this lady that I'm teaching, who happened to be a Gentile. And I was asking, did she know who the true Israelites are? Not. And if so, would she be able to explain that to someone who don't know? No, her response was more so, she couldn't be without causing a person to be confused, which, I think was, a very honest answer. And so, it kind of compelled me to do this lesson right here because there's still a lot of people out there who either don't know or don't believe that so-called black people are, you know, descendants of the ancient Israelites. Those of us who descend from the transatlantic slave trade. Specifically, we will be from the kingdom of Judah, if not Judah ourselves, because, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, they dwell together. So without further ado, man, we're going to give our honor, praise, and glory to Yahuwah. And we do so in the name of the beloved Son, whose proper name is Yahusha, who the word ignorantly calls Jesus. We dedicate this lesson. So without further ado, let's get right to it, man. We're gonna start with an opening scripture because we have to understand what's going on now, but we won't fully understand what's going on now until we identify and understand who the players are in this whole scheme of things, right? So we're going to read from the book of Obadiah. Oh, Salaki. We're going to read from the book of Obadiah. And we're going to know just one chapter, so we're going to be starting at verse 15. It says, "For the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head." And that's Obadiah, chapter 1, verse 15. So as we can see, with the wars going on, and as of now, we got America and Israel, bombing Iran, which biblically will be Persia, right? So all this stuff here that's happening is prophetic. We can read about these in Ezekiel chapter 36, 37, and 38. We can see this whole thing, playing out, as the Bible, explaining would right before our eyes. But a lot of us miss what's going on because we don't know how or who the players really are, right? So therefore, some of us are thinking that, God's people are in the midst of this thing. And we know that they're not, Yahuwah's people. They are of the synagogue of Satan. According to Revelation chapter 2 and 9, verse 3 and 9. So what we're going to do here, we're going to, identify the players, right? In order to understand end times, we must identify the players, right? For too long, the identity of the biblical Israelites has been shrouded in academic theology that ignores the physical evidence. However, the Most High left a prophetic map in Deuteronomy 28. And as we always teach, especially when we're out on the street and we're teaching, we always refer to Deuteronomy 28 because it's the blessings and the curses outlined. And of course, we know the curses outlined in Deuteronomy 28 from 16 to 68. It only fits the people we know today as African Americans, right? And of course, your Mexicans, Latinos, Native Americans, right? These people, fix the curses. And also in Deuteronomy 28, it said that these curses would be for a sign. In other words, to identify who the original children of Israel are in the last days, which we are in. So, uh, we have what's called prophetic markers, right? Certain events that happen that lets us know, when prophecy is unfolded, when it has initiated and getting ready to play out, so on and so forth. Well, the main one here in Deuteronomy 28 is verse 68, right? And it says, the scripture says Israel will go into Egypt, which is the house of bondage, again with ships, right? As we know, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies. So when so-called African American, when our ancestors got off those ships, they were sold. This is facts. You can look this up. You can see it in the movies. I mean, they still got flyers and stuff in these archives and stuff where, it was literally announcing the event where they was gonna have these auctions to sell our people, right? So as we go on, as I was saying, the historical records, they're gonna show these things, that was done, to so-called Black people who are the descendants of the ancient biblical Israelites, right? So as we can see, the records will indicate the only mass movement of a specific people, right, going into captivity on slave ships, which was a lifelong house of bondage. This is something that lasted longer than the bondage that was held in ancient Egypt, right? It goes on to say, we know this was the transatlantic slave trade, right? And in this transatlantic slave trade is when it's through this process of slavery where our identity is lost, where our identity is stripped, our language, so on and so forth. So that's why we read in Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 4, and it states, and thou, even thyself, shall discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee. And what is the heritage that the Most High gave his people? The laws, commandments, and statutes, right? However, the African American experience is defined by the forced stripping of original names, language, and ancestral knowledge, a direct fulfillment of the curse upon the Hebrew people, which, according to Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 4, and likely situated verses, right? But see, just like, we went into this captivity, had these curses placed on us, due to disobedience, because as this same book and chapter, which is Deuteronomy chapter 28, it states in verse 15, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15. And it says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. And the very first curse in 16 say, curse shall thou be in the city, and curse shall thou be in the field. Curse shall be thy basket and thy store. So as you can see, indeed, just these two verses alone, when you want to know where, so-called Black people, Mexican people, Native American people are at or located, all you gotta do is go to the poorest part of the city, where the dilapidated houses, unkempt yards, trash everywhere. People walking around groping in noonday like someone groping in darkness, as this same book and chapter states, And you're going to see that these particular curses, just these two alone, going to identify who the children of Israel are, right? It says, "Cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field." We know when you go in the city, like I said, you're going to know who the Israelites are because they're going to be broke. They're going to be poor, just as it states in verse 17. "Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store." So that means you're not going to have nothing. You're going to be broke, right? Going to be broke. Verse 18, "Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body and the fruit of thy land and the increase of thy kind and the flocks of thy sheep." You're going to lose all of that, right? Let's catch a couple specific ones, right? Okay. And like I said, all of them fit in some way, form, or fashion. They don't fit no other people. But the Lord said, he will place these curses on us to identify, you know, who the children of Israel are, because these curses are going to only be on them, right? Okay. Like I was saying about, the inner city, right? We drop down to verse 28. It said, "The Lord shall smite thee with madness and with blindness and astonishment of heart," right? Verse 29, here's the point. It said, "And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind groping in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee." This is the so-called African American, right? And it goes on to even identify some of those curses that affected us while we were in chattel slavery, like the very next verse, chapter 30, verse 30, say, "Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her." And we know that whenever the so-called slave master wanted a sister, whether she was married to a brother or not, he would go in there and he would take her and he would have her how he want her, and there wouldn't be nothing her man can do about it. This literally happened to our people, right? They said, "Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof." With the saying, we're gonna build these people houses, which we did that. We're gonna cultivate their land and plant their crops and grow their stuff and make them money. We did that. There's only one people that did that, right? Let's go down and get a couple more. Right? Let's drop down to 32. It say, "Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people." And we know this happened to us. This happened to us. This was almost like the norm. How families were separated and sent off to different plantations and stuff like that, to never see their loved ones again. And say, "Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. And there shall be no might in our hand." There was nothing that we could do about that. Maybe we snatch the sister baby up and send the baby to a whole other plantation. These things don't fit no other. When did the so-called Jewish people go through stuff like this? And you can't find no record of it, right? But you can find a record of this with the so-called African American, right? Let's drop down and get a couple more. We want to try to get the ones, all of them fits, but we want the one that's playing upon tables, right? And like in 36, here's another one. Say, "The Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which thou nor thy fathers have known," right? And we know when they went over there, and those Hamites, helped them capture us, sold us to them, or they just however they got us. They didn't get just regular people. Regular everyday, man, woman, child. They got kings and princes and military generals and people like this. In other words, they got prominent people as well, our kings, right? Check it out. And they say, "And there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. And of course, we know the Lord is speaking similitudes, he's speaking metaphors, parables, dark sayings, and everything, right? So when he say gods, wood and stone, we know that the emblem for Christianity is the wooden cross, which we know Yahusha wasn't nailed to no cross. He was hung on a tree, right? And of course, the stone, the cobblestone, was a lot of people turned Muslims as well, And we know the cobblestone is the number one emblem, one of the main emblems, and things of Islam, right? And our fathers didn't know nothing about this. They really didn't, right? And it said in verse 37, and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among our nation, whether the Lord shall lead thee. And this is also true. They don't fit nobody. You have other nations that, specific nation might, call them a certain name or whatever, But with us, I don't care what nation it is, they got a name for us. I don't care where we go in this world. When you say the term nigger, they know who you're talking about. In other words, I don't care what nation it is, right? We're going to be called other than who we are, which is the Hebrew Israelites, right? He goes in, he goes on. We're going to get one more, then we're going to get to the main. And this here one, it supports the one I was giving out earlier. I think it was in 36, 37. Saying, thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. And there was only one worldwide event of mass slavery that happened, and it happened to so-called black people. So just the prophecies alone and the curses alone, I meant to say, it identified us as being Israelites. This is not to include archaeology. You know what I'm saying? It's not to include, history, history. That's not to conclude. Some agree and some don't agree, with the DNA thing. But, us, we stand on prophecy, history and archaeology, we that just them three alone is more than enough evidence to identify people. Because if people fit, the prophecies, the history, and the archaeological finds, then 9 times out of 10, they those people, right? So let's move on. Oh, I gotta give y'all these three right here, because this gonna so upset y'all. All right, the strange, okay, the stranger we know is the other nations, right? Even though this word stranger was associated to Israelites at some point, but the context will let you know that it's talking about either Israelite that became a stranger or a natural Israelite or stranger, which would be a Gentile or a heathen, right? So in this place, in this context right here, in these verses right here, it's talking about the natural Gentile, the heathen, right? It said in this verse 43, chapter Deuteronomy 28:43, it said, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. If you notice, these different people, these East Indians and Iranians, and Africans, and all the other nations that have their businesses in our communities. You know what I'm saying? They get rich off of us. They get rich off of us, right? And we remain at the bottom. We're at the bottom, like the very first 2-3 curses saying, we're gonna be broke and in poverty, right? So here's another confirmation of that in the same, chapter, which is Deuteronomy 28. We in verse 43, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. And it's facts. You can look this up. Look at these nations that comes over that comes over here. Within 5 years, they nice home, place of business, children in the best of schools. You know what I'm saying? But their business is not in their areas or their neighborhood. The business is in our neighborhood. So let's read this one more time. We're gonna move on. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Right? Verse 45. Let's say, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy Yahuwah, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So these curses are a sign, as I said. They're going to identify who the children of Israel are in this day, in the latter days, which is now, right? Verse 47, because thou servest not the Almighty Yahuwah with joyfulness and gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, right? Which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger. You got to get our food from them. And in thirst, we got to get our water for them. We're going to pay water bill. They're going to cut it off. They can monetize the stream, the bottled water. You know, and they selling us the water that's given to the world free. You know, all this, right? This is on point, y'all. Say, and in nakedness, we got to go get our clothes from them. You know, I may own a shop, but I don't own the textile mill to produce the fabric to make the clothes so I can make a profit. No, I still got to go to them. So, you know, it goes on saying, and the want of all things, no matter what it is that we want, because we're a nation. You know, we're not independent. We're a dependent nation. We're still in the land of our captivity, right? But we have to go to these people for everything that we possibly want and need, right? And check this out and say, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed. Now, I'm finna show y'all the yoke of iron. And some of y'all don't know. I'm gonna hook this up real quick for y'all. Give me a second. Show images of yokes of iron. Okay. Let me pull them up and I'm gonna share it. Oh, I almost knocked my out. Y'all give me a second. I'm gonna get this for you. I'm gonna pull up a couple of images. All right, so let me share this with y'all real quick. I don't want to let me share, man. What's going on? They won't let me share, man. That's crazy. Let me try this one. Okay, here we go. All right. Now, these are yokes of iron. And if you notice, when you type it, this is all I did, show images of yokes of iron. And they bring up all the slave devices. They go up, brother, yoke of iron. These the torture devices that they had in slavery. Yoke of iron. They go come to Kente right there from the movie. They had this stuff on us like we were cattle. Look at here. All these are torture devices, man. So we can stop saying, get back to this. So as we can see, he would place a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. In other words, and you know what? I'm gonna say this in I ran across one of my old videos. Way back, man, I want to say like 2017, 18, somewhere like that, where I'm giving a breakdown about the dog on the chain, the pit bull on the chain. But it's just like when you have a dog on the chain, you trying to yard break it the way he won't leave the yard or whatever and all that. He yank on that chain and pull on that chain. And when he realized he can't go nowhere, man, he stopped resisting. You can take the chain off of him now. He ain't gonna go out the yard or nothing. So when it say destroy, this what it means. We're destroyed. We're not gonna know nothing as far as who we are, who our God is, and so on and so forth, right? So, like I said, these curses only fit the so-called African American, right? So now let's drop down to 6 Now I might have to do a little breaking down this. The very last verse, right? And it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Okay. We know that in ancient Egypt and where Israel is located, you don't need no ship to go there, right? Remember, the Israelites walked into Egypt and they walked out of Egypt, right? It says, by way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. And that word, no man shall buy you, is redeemed. The Hebrew word is kanah, Qanah, if I'm not mistaken. That means to redeem, to buy. And we still here in the land of our captivity. No one has redeemed us because the Bible says no man is going to take Christ. We'll be redeemed and gathered and taken back to our land when Christ returns, right? So as we can see, the people who claim to be Jews are really not, because they don't fit the curses. Even the Bible calls them, liars, right? And we're going to go get that. We're going to be going to Revelations 2, verse 9, and it reads, red letter, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty. He's talking about the real Jews, us, right? He said, but thou art rich because we've been given the promises and the blessings and so on and so forth, right? And I know the blasphemy, the lie of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan, chief of Satan. These people work for Satan. This who their God is. And they'll tell you this. These people will admit and tell you that they worship Lucifer, they worship Satan, right? And so, and when you really think about this chapter and verse here, okay, what people back then during the time this was written was calling themselves Jews, but wasn't that Christ knew about it. Think about it, right? So let's move on, man. Let's get to the other part, man. Let's get to the other part of this lesson, right? And of course, this is the judgment of the nations, right? So the scripture declared that the Gentile nations who built their empires on the blue marrow of the Israelites will face a divine lawsuit. That's right. Say the wealth of the first world was largely subsidized by the free labor of the children of Israel, and the Most High has kept the books. That's right. That's why he said, he's going to remember their iniquities. That's why he tells us to come out of her, my people. We're going to go get that. We're going to go to Revelation 18 since we're here already. We're going to go to chapter 18. And we're going to start at verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. for her sins have reached unto heaven. And Yahuwah had remembered, because he kept the books, right? Had remembered her iniquities. So as we can see, this evil one, these wicked people, well, they know they haven't gotten away with it. They know they only had time to do their thing. Their time is up. That's why you're seeing these nations, they starting to crumble. And they fighting against each other, you know what I'm saying? They starting to crumble down because, all this has to take place. And that land over there has to be purified of the wicked before the original holy seed can be brought back to the land. So all that must take place, right? Okay. So when we dealing with the Most High's remembrance of the iniquities of the wicked, this is considered the law of retribution because these people have dealt unjustly with the apple of his eye, which is the children of Israel, right? So we're gonna go to Joel chapter 3. We're gonna start at verse 1 because this is talking about the end times, the now. Right? I said, for behold, in those days, talking about now, and in that time, still talking about now, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, well, we're gonna turn our captivity, you're gonna take it away from us. And I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for my inheritance, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, transatlantic slave trade, and parted my land. The little hat boys who call themselves the Jewish people, divided the land up, the Edomites, Amalekites, right? And saying they have cast lots for my people. Right now we're soulless, man. And have given a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine that they may drink. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and O Zidon? These are Hamite nations, right? They sold us to the Grecians. Let's read on, right? They say, and all the coast of Palestine, will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head? Because ye have taken my silver and my gold and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. Pay attention here, verse 6. The children also of Judah was the so-called African American, right? And the children of Jerusalem and all the kingdom Israelites have ye sold unto the Grecians. And it was a brother I was checking out earlier today, where he was talking about Titus, they were seeing from the Greek people, there was Titus who did what he did in the temple, ransacked the temple, took all the godly and goodly things out of the temple. And then he came, he made an ark. It's called Titus's Ark, and he got the picture of them, taking the menorah, and then got the Israelites in captivity, in slavery. You know what I'm saying? And Titus, he's carried around on an eagle. Symbolic, of course, we know of Satan, right? So it's saying that the children of Judah, and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians that ye might remove them far from their borders. And this is what happened. Remember, we were scattered to the four corners of the earth in four directions, right? You say, behold, I will raise them out of the place whither ye have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head. So therefore, what they done to us, the Most High gonna do to them. They gonna have, he's gonna return it back on them, right? That's what recompense is, to pay back, right? They said, and I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hands of the children of Judah, right? So-called African American. And they shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for the Lord has spoken it. The Sabians is like an Arab, Muslim type like nation, a group of people, right? And this is who the children of Judah is going to sell these people to, just like these people sold us to them. It's the Most High. His judgment is like a ring. It's like a circle. They go around in circles, man. And to confirm this right here, we can go to Revelation 13. He who lead in captivity shall go into captivity, and all this stuff. It's just too many verses that and books and chapters that make it clear as day that these people who led us into captivity must go into captivity. Let's go to Isaiah 14, because this where this is going to be reversed. This is where this role is reversed. Check this out. And this is a great promise, that the Most High is making. What I'm saying, to the children of Israel. Let's go to Isaiah 14. I'm going to start at verse 2. I'm just going to bring it to 1. Say, for the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. The stranger was, the Gentile, those heathen nations, shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave. So you're going to have heathen that's going to cleave to Israel, that's going to submit to the laws, commandments, and statutes of Yahuwah. Going to live how the Israelites are living. And we've always had strangers that lived amongst us that did what we did. You got a bunch of examples in Ruth, what I'm saying, and different accounts like that where heathens, what I'm saying, declare they will worship the God of Israel. They will do as the Israelites do, keep the laws, commandments, statutes, die where they die, and everything. Just got to go read it. This is nothing new, right? And it says, they shall cleave to the house of Jacob, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for service and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, right? And they shall rule over their oppressors. So, the Most High make it clear that it's going to be a reversal, a role, or it's going to be a recompense. And that recompense is going to be, what you done, you shall receive. What you reap, what you sow is what you're going to reap, right? Let's move on. We have some historical facts, man, because a lot of these nations that you're seeing today, these are some of the same nations from biblical times, right? Let's say the nations involved in the Berlin Conference of 1884, right? And what that was about was the partition of Africa, where they were going to divide up Africa. You know what I'm saying? And these were your heathen Gentile nations. Check this out. All right. It say the nations involved in the Berlin Conference in 1884 and the global slave trade were Portugal, Spain, Britain, France, and the Americas. These were the people involved in the carving up of Africa. Are currently seeing the stability of their kingdoms falter, which we're seeing these nations fall, right? This is not political coincidence. It is the beginning of the cup of fury being handed back to the masters. And we can find that in Isaiah. Let's go to Isaiah. We were already there, so we're going to be going on 51. Isaiah 51. Yeah, everything that's happening, man, it's already been written. It's just a lot of us, don't understand what's going on because we don't know who the players are. And again, let's go to Isaiah 51. We're going to start in verse 22. And it reads, thus say the Lord, thus say thy Lord, the Lord and thy God that pleadeth the cause of his people. Behold, I have taken out of thine hand the cup of trembling, even the dregs of the cup of my fury. thou shalt no more drink it again, but I will put it into the hand of them that afflict thee. Right? It say, which have said to thy soul, bow down, that we may go over. And thou hast laid thy body as the ground and as the street to them that went over. So now, all praise to the Father, man. Look at this here, look at this here. This is plain upon table. Anybody that's familiar with the happenings, some of the happenings, not all of them, because a lot of things still we don't know. Because it's hid, right? But if y'all are not familiar with these people doing our people like this, like making them get on their knees for they using their back as footrests and all this stuff. But this happened to our people, man. It didn't happen to no other nations. So we are the Israelites, you know what I'm saying? So, and here it is playing upon tables right here, almost word for word, which have said to thy soul, bow down, right? That we may go over, and thou hast laid thy body as the ground and as the street to them that went over. Man, this Bible a true book. It was taught to us by lions, man. It's a true book. And it's about us, all about us, man. Right? So as we can see, the same thing that the wicked did to us, it must happen to them, right? And we talking about those hostile Gentile nations towards it, because all Gentiles, a lot of Gentiles love us, try to be like us and live like us and all this stuff here. So, this don't mean all Gentiles. Those who are hostile towards us, those who show anger and hatred and resentment towards us, right? So when now being that all this is happening, we have to prepare for what we call the second Exodus, right? Because remember, we're going to be rounded up and we're going to be taken back to our own land. And those nations of people who cleave to us, right? So it's going to be a second deliverance. Lock you. Oh, it's getting late, y'all. So it's going to be a second deliverance, right? And the crazy thing is not going to be the rapture. Y'all know a lot of y'all looking for the rapture and all that. That is fact. That is fairy tale, right? However, the prophets, though, of old, they looked for restoration, right? The restoration of the African Americans, the Hebrew Israelites, is the primary sign that the age of the wicked is closing. That's right. Made me think about a passage in what's that? That's Second Ezra 6. Let me go pull that up for y'all real quick. Okay, I gotta go to my other Bible. With the apocrypha. Either 6 or 9, one of them. I get it. Let me pull this up. Six. What was that? 13. I'm having a brain freeze. Hold on. Yeah, Second Ezra 6 and 9. I knew I was tripping. Where I say, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. So those people that's occupying land now and really just controlling, the world as we know it, these are the Edomites, these are the Amalekites, right? They're descendants. These are the same people. Ain't nothing changed, right? But remember, he was given the time to rule this world. The world was given to him. right? And we can read that in Job chapter 9:24. Let's go get that real quick. We're gonna get to it. Job 9:24. And it reads, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. And who are the judges? The judges is Yahusha and the Israelites, right? You know what I'm saying? He changed their image from the original image, which was melanated, to what we know was white. He changed the faces of the judges. Whoever did that, that's the wicked, right? And it goes on to say, if not, where and who is he? The Bible is clear, it's plain upon the table. We're going to back it up. We're going to go get one more to, confront him. And we're going to be going to First Maccabees 3, and that's 48. It said, they laid open the book of the law, the Torah, the Bible, wherein the heathen has sought to paint the likeness of their images. So they changed. That's who wicked. That's who the earth was given to. So this devil know that he only have a time, right? And he know that his time is up. And we're in those times now, right? So the greater Exodus will be this last and final restoration of Israel. Right? We can go to Jeremiah 16, verses 14 to 15, right? And it deals strictly with that. Let's go over there. Jeremiah 16, and we're in verse 14. And it reads, therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I shall no more be said, the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, and from all the lands whether he had driven them. And I will bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers. So the land of the north, that's North America, and all the other lands where we've been scattered. Like we just told you, it was Portugal, Britain, Spain, France, and the Americas that pretty much carved up Africa in what they call the Berlin Conference. Right? So these the nations that are being talked about. So as we can see, we're gonna have this. Let me make this clear too. That I brought this up. Okay, Armageddon and Jehoshaphat is kind of two different things. One of them is when Lord gonna call, all the nations. That's the battle of Jehoshaphat. But the war Armageddon would be when the Israelites are given the power to become the Lord's battle axe and go to war with these remaining nations that just refuse. Yeah, I know that kind of went over a few people's head. It's not the same thing though, right? So Laki, give me a second. All right, y'all. I had to pause for a minute. I had to go to the restroom, man. Y'all forgive me. So where was at? Okay, we was in Jeremiah 16. And we started at verse 14. And it reads, therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be said that the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, which is North America, right? And from all the lands whether he had driven them. And I will bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers, right? So as we can see, it will be a second deliverance. It will be a second Exodus. Most definitely a second Exodus, especially, during and right after the destruction of the heathen. Because remember, we opened this lesson up with Obadiah 1 and 15, judgment is upon all the heathen, right? So, it's going to be a call to the remnant, right? And Luke 24:21, of course, we know the times of Gentile, right? Into the time of Gentile fear. This is this I was telling you about, they only have a certain time. The word was given to them to do their establishment for a certain time, right? And so this why we are told to come out of her, come out of this wicked system. You know what I'm saying? Because their time is over, their judgment is not at hand, and they're about to be judged. So, and if we don't repent and turn back to those laws, commandments, and statutes, and back to our Lord God, the God of Israel, the God of heaven and earth, his proper name is Shahuah, then we're going to die right along with these people. We're going to be judged right along with them. So it's why we're told in Revelation 18:4 to come out for a people that you be not partakers of her sins and that you receive not of her plagues. It gets no plain in that, right? So, as we see, Revelation 18:4 is not necessarily talking about a physical flight, even though it's going to be one, but it's also talking about spiritual and mental as well, right? And it's a call to drop the bottom words, Negro, Black, African American, Mexican, what I'm saying, Puerto Rican, all these people are Israelites, so this is what it means to come out of her. We gotta come out of the ways of this society, this world, because it's the world of Satan. That's why I tell us to not love the world and the things in it, because if we love the world, then we're enemies to the Most High, right? So the conclusion to this is right here. The kingdom is going to be restored to the world seed as the downtrodden, the bottom of society, the so-called African American. That's the lowly. That's the meek, of the earth that the Bible speaks about. So, in order for us to understand what's going on, we must understand who the players are of the game. And as long as we're thinking that someone else is the main players of this movie, so to speak, we gonna miss the whole entire, moral of the story. We're gonna miss the whole entire thing because we're looking at the wrong people, when the people who we should be paying attention to are the people who fit the curses, the people who fit the archaeological findings and stuff like that, that says that these people are the Israelites, which is us, the so-called Black African American here in the wilderness of North America. That's right. So, without further ado, man, I'm gonna go ahead and say shalom. I'm gonna end this, and hopefully, man, Yahuwah, open up your faculties of understanding and allow you to, receive, this seed, and may he, give the increase, So I'm gonna say shalom, Wabarakatah, Mr. God, peace and blessings, family. And with that, shalom, good night.